Huh?
I'm not for you.
You like
For you.
for you into the news.
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming. What a nice surprise to have so many beautiful people. We have the rare privilege today to have with us a very high Geshe from Sera Monastery, the mother of our lineage. So I'd like to introduce Geshe Nawang Kelsang. He'll be taking the class today. I'll start normally like we do with meditation to get our mind back to where our mind could be. So from reverse to neutral, and then I'm going to take a seat back, and we've offered the class to Geshe La. He's a very accomplished teacher from Sera Monastery. For those of you who have been studying at the Three Jewels for a little while, you will know that this lineage is alive, and it's alive because of masters like Geshe La and Geshe Michael Roach and Geshe Tachin, his teacher. So I'd like you to really check your motivation why you're here today, because we're going to receive a beautiful transmission from the very same lineage that awoke a movement in America of practical Dharma, wisdom that transcends religion, that becomes practical, meaningful things. So I'm going to ask you if you just take a nice, comfortable seat. Who's going to say? For those of you who have not been here, we're going to offer the mandala as a request for teachings. So we imagine in our mind the most perfect universe, all suffering gone, everything bliss, and we offer it to the highest teacher to please teach us wisdom so we can transcend suffering. And then we'll take refuge, meaning we think specifically of this wisdom and this knowledge and what it can do to free us from suffering. So, Sam.
Sashi Puki Jishin Metok Tram Riral Shin Embodies Sangha Shindu Mite Wargi Drokun Namda Shinla Chipasho Hidam Guru Ratnamandala Kamnyatayami Sangye Chidam Zoki Jognam Long Janchu Bardu Dagni Gapsuchi Daki Chinyengi Pesonam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chidam Zoki Jognam Long Janchu Bardu Dagni Gapsuchi Daki Chinyengi Pesonam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chidam Zoki Jognam Lang Janju Bardu Dagni Gapsuchi Daki Chinyengi Pesonam Ki Drola Penshir Sangye Drupasho.
So the structure for the class today will be about 7 to 10 minutes of just recalibrating the mind. We're going to do a short meditation, so please take a nice, comfortable seated posture. Become aware of your body in this space. And I can sense an excitement in the room, so just be aware of that energy in your body as well. I'll lead you through a quick meditation. Geshe will cover very quickly the content of the next class in the ACI series that we're covering on refuge. And then he's going to talk in general about refuge as they teach it in Sarah Monastery, and open the course up for the second half to questions and answers. So feel free to really get all your questions answered now, right? So make sure you're nicely seated, comfortable position. Your base is solid. Your backside is a little bit higher than your knees. The important thing here is that your back is straight and you can ignore your physical body from bothering you for the next few minutes. And just breathe. Just breathe. And scan the edges of your body that make contact with the ground and the cushion. Feel solid there in that space. Sense the room to the edges of the wall and the door outside. And build some barrier between you and the outside world. This is your time, the next few minutes, to be in contact with that thing that interprets your universe, your mind, the thing you identify as you. And as your awareness comes into the room, bring your awareness now to the edges of your skin. This thing you call your body. And breathe naturally through your nose. Now bring your awareness to the inside of your skin. And with each breath, I'd like you to transform the inside of your body, your organs and your bones and your liquids, and make them transparent until there's nothing but an infinite blue inside of you, inside the shell of what would have been your skin. Do that for a few breaths. Ride the awareness on your breath. With each inhale and exhale, the inside of your body turns translucent until you have an infinite blue sky inside the edges of your skin. Whenever you have a thought that comes to interfere, just watch it come and go and return your focus on the breath. Lean your mind into the breath as it enters and exits your nostril. Quickly check your motivation for being here. What is it that your mind is seeking? What would make it happy? What would make it ultimately happy? And in that search, ask your teacher, a lama, an exquisite being to come and teach you. Watch them seated in meditation posture in front of you, knees touching, facing each other. This being comes to you. This is the highest evolution of a being you can imagine to the best of your capacity. Someone that embodies wisdom and compassion to an infinite degree. Make them very real in front of you. Feel their gravity in front of you. See if you can sense their scent. Make them some beautiful offering for having come. Maybe it's a beautiful sunset, a lovely image, or a special moment that you had today that filled you with love. Offer it to them for teachings. Next, I'd like you to think of a moment that you had in the last 24 hours where you did some negativity of mind or body or speech, something that didn't feel good, that created some negative impulse in your life and the life around you. And observe that like a third person and generate a deep sense of regret for having acted or thought or spoken that way. Try and generate a sense of, if you could take it back, you would, and you make a commitment not to do that for a specific period of time in the future. And know that by doing that, you've put a dent on the effects that experience will have in your life in the future. So really generate a deep sense of regret, wishing you could control yourself next time. And now I'd like you to do the opposite. Scan your day for the last 24 hours and find a moment where you were most beautiful, where you loved somebody, where you did an infinite goodness, where your motivation was pure. Find that moment in your last 24 hours. Maybe it was some effort you put towards a goodness. Maybe it was helping another person. But you brought an impulse of good into the world that will expand. Relive that moment, feel it in your chest, and feel a deep sense of joy for having done that. Afford yourself the happiness of rejoicing in a goodness that you did. Now imagine people all around you having also done some goodness, and all around the world. And feel the happiness that there are people doing that in this day and age throughout the planet, creating goodnesses that will expand. And just be happy. Now I'd like you to return your focus on that being in front of you and ask them please to teach you at every turn, in every experience that you encounter, whether it may seem positive or negative to you, may their presence appear in those moments, and may every one of those moments be a teaching from them, leading you to a state of enlightenment. And they lean over closer to you and they agree that they will come. And ask them please to stay until you reach that state. And they agree. And as they do, please imagine them floating up and shrinking down to the size of a pea, floating just above the crown of your head, facing the same direction you're facing. And they'll sit there for the remainder of your class. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. So as I said, a brief introduction. I'd like to welcome from Sarah Monastery, Geshe Nawang Kelsan. Sarah May? What did I say, Sarah J?
No, you said Sarah.
Huh?
Sarah in general.
Oh, Sarah May Monastery. So Geshe will be assisted by our translator Tenzin. I'm done. I'm just going to sit around and drink water. So thank you very much, Geshe, for this. Yeah.
First of all, I would like to greet all of you. I actually consider this as very auspicious that this is my first time to the United States, and this is also my first teaching here. And also the topic is bodhicitta, which is basically the gateway, the first gateway of entering into Mahayana practice. So therefore, I actually just thought that this is very auspicious coincidence that these things are coming together. So, as Hector advised me, I'm going to divide my class in such a way that first of all we're going to teach from the text from the Ornament of Clear Realizations by Maitreya that we have been taking this class from Hector. So I'm going to start with this, and then after this I'm going to do a general presentation on the practice of refuge and how to basically engage in the practice of refuge on a daily basis. So now from the Ornament of Clear Realizations by Maitreya Buddha, the chapter that you are on right now is the chapter on bodhicitta. And the Ornament of Clear Realization in itself is actually, divided in such a way that they are discussions on, first of all, three types of omniscience, 4 types of practices, and then the resultant state of Dhammakaya. So right now, the bodhicitta basically belongs to the first 3, section on 3 types of omniscience. And with respect to omniscience, there are 10 dharmas or 10 factors that basically represent what is omniscience. And so one of those 10 factors that basically is an aspect of omniscience, or basically describes what omniscience is bodhicitta. So therefore, we're going to, this is basically the context of bodhicitta within the Ornament of Clear Realizations.
the 생계반의 신도치스에게 삽제 장으로 되는 이 시작은 중이 대단 타제받은 삽진이 들어왔어. 다 슈니 제세 슈니 공부사들이 오늘 가지고도 얘한테 아니 좀 중요한데 순종이 되니 소라 건강하게 된거 기능 순종이 되니 지금 제와장식 아니 차대요 그래서 대장단다 이 슈니 제대 국사들이 아니 이런 기대도 좀 많네 아니 이거 가면 도시가 바꾸는 게 무슨 최화됐어
So therefore, right in the beginning, it says, here we will discuss the lines of root texts, which begin with the wish for enlightenment is for the benefit of others. So therefore, it says here, first we will relate this concept to the original text. Basically means contextualize it basically within the context of the broader sutras taught by the Buddha, and then it says we will basically engage in analysis of what it is and so forth, the definition and so forth. So therefore, the contextual text, the text that is basically cited here to basically prove that this is something that is basically taught by the Buddha and not by latter-day Indian masters and so forth, is basically by quoting from this particular Prajnaparamita Sutra, Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, which is basically, we talk about the three mothers, these the elaborate, the middle length, and then concise Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So therefore, this particular verse is actually from the middle length Perfection of Wisdom, where it says, so this is basically the text is that quoted from the middle length Perfection of Wisdom Sutra.
이 슈미 제대로 무슨 당고 돌에 셔리 그때가 치어 담지 누나바도 누나바도 성제가 되게 셔라기 바로 붙지 말라바 차 대단 되게 시즌을 라바 차시 너의 베베기 대지 승지 뭐다 제가 제발 나왔어 안에 다 바로 도주 그런 거 지금 가면은 안에 갈수는 안에 좀 맞추면 되게 셔리고 치어 담지 내가 아니 나바도 누나바도 성제가 되게 셔라버지 라바 차서 네가 좀 그것을 보면 또 시럽게 때문에 보내더니 배들가 안에 가면서는 아니 대바치를 쓴지 제주 쓴지 때는 대단 대들 봤을 때는 분반이지 안 두수니 배에 다 슈가 때문에 있어 수가 됐어.
So therefore, if we basically first we go to the text itself, quoted from the middle length Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, where it says, we find the following lines in Sutra, which is on page number 10. Sharipu, those who wish to gain total enlightenment, a knowledge of every kind of things, must train themselves in the perfection of wisdom. Those who wish this and that must train themselves in the wisdom perfection. So therefore, what is clearly kind of taught here explicitly, directly, is basically the teachings on emptiness, or perfection of wisdom teachings, because it says basically must train themselves in the perfection of wisdom. But what is taught implicitly, or what we say as like in a hidden form. So there is the direct subject matter, and then there is the hidden subject matter, something that is kind of implied, even though that is not explicitly mentioned. So the implicit teaching here is basically the teaching on bodhicitta. So therefore, he says, those who wish to gain total enlightenment must train themselves in the perfection of wisdom. So therefore, the wish to gain the state of enlightenment, which is basically bodhicitta, is implied here, which is not the direct subject matter here. The direct subject matter here is training in the perfection of wisdom, which is basically on emptiness. So therefore, next it says, those who wish this and that. And these two actually words, this and that, actually shows the two types of aspirations, which are the mental factors. Because when you define bodhicitta, it's the primary mind, which has these two aspirations, which are mental factors, right? So this is basically shown in the text by these two words, those who wish this and that. And this and that basically points to the two aspirations that we can discuss within the context of bodhicitta.
어디는 어디 생계 시중 체바 체바가 생계 관리 셰바는 나반이 육관에서 시비 관리 자리는 소원을 소원을 주어서 이거 나무도 제 그런 저는 쇼르가 수요를 쇼르가 아니 생계 관리 신경질 한다도 저도 일단 되는 도시는 비단 지구를 지었을 때 생인데 이제 생기 생인데 다 대한 스스로 나와를 때다는 게 주는 도시를 신인데 신을 위반 대부분 다른 곳이 실버도 외주다는 단위 주어진 나반이 단위 소신이 스티지 생기 예와디 무슨 예와 수요를 아니 당분이 쇼르가 당분이 생리당 등의 쇼르가 치만이기 아니 예와도 수 때문에 쇼르도 그래서 이와도 수비 예와.
So, in the actual ornament of clear religion text, there are 3 verses that basically explain the bodhicitta. The first verse, where it says, bodhicitta is that that basically seeks the state of enlightenment for other sentient beings, and begins with that verse. Begins with that line. That basically first verse basically defines bodhicitta, or explains what bodhicitta is, and then the second 2 lines where it says like just like earth, just like gold, just like moon and so forth. Like how there are 22 types of bodhicittas that are taught through analogies, 22 analogies, and like that the next 2 verses basically explain the different types of bodhicitta or classification.
다든가 성제반의 신도들은 나도 정주 대단 등급 도시는 부단 집에 보내 주어서 이제 성제기 생일 때만이나 다 제가 도와줬던 아니 당구당 시험에서 강의되고 그래서 아니 근데 가시기 가서는 되게 두나디 가서는 성제반의 신도들이 연락도 정주 되었으니 그거 아니 누가 성중이라 디지 성제를 했으니 와 신도 등이 누가 당 아니 정주 등이 누가 성중이 디지 성제기 생일 도중에서 와 친구가 되고 그래서 라울라는 디지 성제기 아니 지금 생중 말했어 아니 쌤이 또 쌤이 당이 샤워했어 근데 뒤에 올 생일이 되는 제가 시기 있어 제가 지금 시기
So therefore, in the actual text from the ornament of clear realizations, where it says enlightenment is that wish to achieve the state of enlightenment for other sentient beings, or for the benefit of other sentient beings. This presentation is traditionally presented in such a way that first of all there is how other schools or other traditions actually define bodhicitta based on this particular tradition, and then after explaining that, then there is refutation and then establishing one's own point of view. So therefore, based on this particular line where it says enlightenment is the bodhicitta is the wish to achieve the state of enlightenment for the benefit of other sentient beings, other lineages and other traditions have concluded that basically bodhicitta is that which has these 2 aspirations, the wish to gain the state of enlightenment and the wish to actually have other sentient beings. So therefore they define bodhicitta in terms of being secondary mind or mental factors, because aspiration is a mental factor, it's not a primary mind. So according to other lineages and other traditions, therefore bodhicitta is actually defined in terms of being secondary mind or mental factors. In fact, having 2 mental factors. One is the wish to gain the state of enlightenment, and the other is the benefit of the sentient beings. But according to one's own view, according to the tradition that we subscribe to, then bodhicitta is actually not a mental factor. Bodhicitta is a primary mind which has these 2 mental factors. So this is the kind of definition according to one's own tradition. But we're going to come later in detail, and we're going to explain in detail the definition and basically analyze and clarify doubts and so forth.
다 대지 세계는 자주 생기 우리가 이 생중 말에 도전을 샤워해서 굉장히 관해서는 안에 생중 생기 제 레레 무슨 중간에 아니 제 레레를 모두 주고 있어. 다 대지 소생기 관해서는 안에 유고 오다 개발이는 또 오라 주고 다니 뭐이 제 레레 많이 받지 제 주고 다니 오라 주고 있어. 생중 생기 안에 제 소소 중화마도 제 단위도 오라 중화 개발상도 중화해서 아니 디지 생기 오디 아니 유고 제레레 만나지 제 개발 먹고제 유비 단위고 지점마다 미 차네 아니 조선의 단위도 샤워했어. 그래서 조선의 중국 그대데 아니 남들 개발 망치 시작을 디가 그랬어.
기용이 됐는데 상당히
디지 생기 장주 생기가 장주 생기 아니 유고 개발이 좀 오라 중화가 됐을 때 조선의 제 소소만 가지고 당이 여러 다분하지 개발이 예제를 당이 가발을 직접 지용을 주고 있지 당이서 조선이 됐어. 아니 조선이 됐는데 아니 무슨 강압이 주당도 어떻게 찍고 왔겠어. 나 디지 생기한테 이거 정도 아니 조선이 됐어. 개발을 내기 시작을 찍고 왔겠어.
So the reason why in our own tradition we say that bodhicitta is not actually a secondary mind, but rather is a primary mind, is because by definition the secondary mind is something that actually engages in the object, its own kind of object, through individual discrimination or individually, basically discriminating its kind of qualities, individual qualities and so forth. So secondary mind by definition is a mental factor that engages in its own object individually as opposed to engaging the overall aspect of the thing. Whereas primary mind, when it is a primary mind or primary awareness, it does not actually engage in that individual discrimination, going after a particular quality of an object. And so therefore, bodhicitta, when you give rise to bodhicitta, it's an overall, kind of primary mind, as opposed to going after an individual, particular kind of aspect or particular quality of object. And this is basically also the case with how the mind works. There is an overall aspect, and with that there are some secondary minds that also comes together simultaneously. So that's why in our own view, that's why this is the primary reason why we say that bodhicitta is by definition a primary mind as opposed to a secondary mind.
대지 승직이 다 세념 단다로 대지 세면 정규 승직 세념 단다도 다른 데 지원하신 아니 신뢰도 양다 바토베 정규로 미신 장기 조 도전 등의 유발의 통일을 주기 아니 대지 쪽에 이기는 개발자 당시 다준이게 만에 아니 따위 차보다 주변 차도에 대지라는 주구를 주는 캠바스입니다. 그 세니들 수되는 거에서 대지 승직이 순수 신뢰도 양다 바토베 신주로 미신 아랑이 조 도전 등의 유발의 통일을 주기 대지 쪽에 이기는 개발자의 직수 아 수리님의 성공단에 다준이게 만에 주변 차도에 수리님과 같이 수바디 가르스나 대지라는 주구를 주는 봤습니다. 대지 승직이 수는 세니가 수들가 아니 고아입니다. 수능지 다 뒤만에 잡든지 아니 당고 신뢰도 양다 봐도 신뢰가 미신 쓰는 미신데 아니 뭐라도 지전에 지바이나 그런 통제기 뭐라도 통제기 중에 아니 지금 누가디 신뢰 통제 누가디 같이 아니 장기 초도전 통제 누가서는 선제 탐지기 저것을 통해 지원하는 삼바디 아 뒤집을 많이 도배실 거가 차오입니다. 누가지고 코다 통제시 누가니다 통제해서 그래서 좀 당고 통제라고 했어. 뒤가마는데 티제 주의 이기는 제바지는 세대가서나 티제 주의 이기는 게 말아와치 아니 신뢰는 시스템제 그와 신뢰도 양도가 또 신뢰함이 라는 저도 도전도 누가 미가 잠게 티제 시스템제 사용 말했어. 뒤가서나 티제 시스템제 마슈 혼이 장티 시스템이 되어있어. 그래서 티제 주의 이기는 게 세대가 티제 이기는 디제 디과치부 등 셈비 아니 여기 처벌 뒤에 뒤라 가지고 있으나 신뢰 등이 누가다 오늘 조사 등이 누가 니가라 아니 명화 주민이 명화 통과지 등이 디제 주의 이거를 셈 등이야 버렸어요.
So then we go according to the text here, the definition according to the text here, and then clarify some of the points here. So in the text here it says, here is the section in which we present our own position. The definition of the greater ways wish for enlightenment is as follows. First, it is that main mental awareness belonging to the greater way, which is focused on achieving total enlightenment for the benefit of others, and which is matched with the mind, with the state of mind that is associated with it, the aspiration to achieve total enlightenment. Then it continues here. Secondly, it is the knowledge belonging to the greater way, which acts as a door for entering the greater way, and which is included into the activity side of the standard division into the two of view and activity. So therefore, this definition basically points to three aspects of bodhicitta. And first, basically, as it explained here, it's basically it is a primary mind, but a primary mind who has this simultaneous or co-emergent or co-emerging two mental factors or two aspirations of wishing to gain the state of enlightenment, and that too for the benefit of other sentient beings. So therefore, even though these two aspirations, which are mental factors, overall it is a primary mental factor that has these two co-emergent mental factors. And so right in the beginning it says, first it is the main mental awareness belonging to the greater way. And this has a real significance, because belonging to the greater way is, by this phrase here, it basically says that, when we talk about bodhicitta, bodhicitta is something that belongs to the greater way, means that is something that is, the bodhicitta is spontaneous. Bodhicitta is not something that is created during a meditation session, but something that you are so habituated to your meditation that it is actual, it is spontaneous, it is intuitive, and therefore it is not created like that. So therefore, if we don't have this as aspect or part of definition, then generally speaking, anyone can have these two aspirations. Anyone, even when someone who has not given rise to bodhicitta, who is not a bodhisattva, can have these two aspirations. Can have the wish to gain state of enlightenment, and also can have, the wish to help other sentient beings. But so therefore, this aspect of definition is very important. That you have actually trained yourself to such an extent that bodhicitta is natural and spontaneous. And so therefore, there is no need for your what you call it, like effort. For it's not a product of your own effort. And then, so this is the first aspect, defining what it is. And then secondly, first and the second aspect. The second aspect is that it belongs to the greater way. That is important. And thirdly, the third aspect is physically the next section here, where he says, it is a knowledge belonging to the greater way which acts as a door for entering the gateway. So therefore, so therefore, this is the third aspect, that it is basically the door for entering the greater way, and which belongs to the side of conduct. It belongs to the side of activity. Usually we talk about method and wisdom, or conduct and wisdom, or view and activity. So therefore, the bodhicitta, when we talk about method and wisdom, belongs to the aspect of method, or belongs to the aspect of activity or practice or conduct.
신뢰를 양다고 소리를 있어야다. 아니 두번이 뒤지 심지 두번이 나네 신뢰 등이 두마당 조사 등이 두번이 있으니까 신뢰 등이 두번은 심지 탐지 도배 탐지 고마도 치마도 삼모대당 삼바대당 아니 뒤치도 아니 도배 신부터가 좌우님이 삼반이 깨르고 제와이는 아니 지금 되게 가는 주제 명화 듣는 무슨 마시에 뒤지는 스님이라는 마시에바 뒤지는 진제 진도 이모 참가 안 하스는 인지 지금 또기 아니 신뢰등이 두마디 얘는 제라들이 남들들이 두마디 제라 제와 그래서 아니 도배 전도 이내 요와 퇴원이 아마도 본장이다 요와 퇴원이 아니 도배 산지 뭔가 통과하신 분이 남성 계획이 내려와 그래서 지금 영용이 세마디 얘라 내려와치 요와 퇴원라와치 신뢰등이 두마디라 요와 퇴원가와 있습니다. 남들 등으로 나중에 영화 튼 신의 등으로 영화 마티오리 삼바드라 아니 배전나 할수 없는 부시로도 비춰질 수 있는 아니 부시에서 나오는 부시 아니 부시 뭐 신도 부시세들이 박바지라 나무열에 나무들아 나무열에서 그래서 근데 부시로도 비춰질 수 있는 아니 아니 도비 선주를 토바 잡는 삼바드라 영화 튼 신의 등으로 영화 마티오리 내가더라 부시로도 비춰질 수 있는 것 때문에 잡고 있어. 네가 정주성 좋았대서요. 그래서 말하는 그런 부신지도 빡빡들라 중앙무열에 나무들라 나무열에서 이는 중앙무들라는 중앙무를 누가 치중 제발이었어. 뒷나신신은 아니 신유 등으로 당한 거죠. 누가 니가 나더니 영용의 세마디 나무 표현 상황에서는 아니 뒤집음 제했습니다. 아주 부신한 중앙무원에 누구냐가 다시 뒤에서 차고 뒤태나더니 뒤집 쪽에 이름을 쳐봤지면서 뒤에서 가는 거하디 뒤집음 뒤에서 잡는 되겠어.
So here the two aspirations, the aspiration to help other sentient beings, and the ultimate way of helping other sentient beings is basically by staging them to the state of enlightenment. So therefore, when we say helping other sentient beings, the motivation, the aspiration here is basically to help other sentient beings reach the state of enlightenment. And so that is the first aspiration. The second aspiration here is, and for that purpose, in order to help other sentient beings reach the state of enlightenment, then one has to fulfill one's own purpose first. One has to gain the state of enlightenment first in order to help other sentient beings. So therefore, in terms of actually sequence of the generation of these two aspirations, which comes first? The aspiration to help other sentient beings comes first by very nature of bodhicitta, because when we actually train in bodhicitta, for example, when we train in bodhicitta through the seven causal factors, seven causal results, right? Tradition, where we see sentient beings as one's own mothers in this lifetime or in many lifetimes, and then we reflect on their kindness, then we give rise to the intention to repay their kindness, and then based on that we basically give rise to love, and then compassion, and then the determination to help them. So therefore, through that training, we know that the aspiration to help other sentient beings comes first, followed by aspiration to gain the state of enlightenment yourself. Because the aspiration to gain the state of enlightenment is actually inspired by the first aspiration to help other sentient beings. So therefore, in terms of sequence in training, the aspiration to help sentient beings comes first, followed by aspiration to gain the state of enlightenment yourself. Second aspiration. But in terms of actual experience, the second aspiration comes first, because it is much easier to actually give rise to the aspiration to achieve the state of enlightenment yourself, and not just verbally, but actually experientially. So therefore, in terms of gaining experience in this training, in terms of actually experiencing it, then the second aspiration is easier, and therefore the second aspiration comes first. In your own experience, uncreated experience, spontaneous experience, in which to gain the state of enlightenment yourself comes first. And relatively speaking, the wish to help other sentient beings reach that state, that aspiration is more difficult to cultivate. And so therefore, we have an analogy to describe this. When we are in that state where we have given rise to spontaneous, genuine, intuitive wish to gain the state of enlightenment yourself, and we have not given rise to a genuine intuitive wish to help sentient beings reach that state of enlightenment. The analogy is like a sugar cane. In India we have sugar cane, and so the sugar cane, the skin is sweet too, and the inside, the kind of the meat is sweet too. So when you are at that stage where you have given rise to an authentic, genuine aspiration to achieve the state of enlightenment yourself, and not given rise to a genuine aspiration to help others reach that state, that is like tasting the sugar cane from the outside. The skin, it's sweet, it's not as sweet as what is actually inside. And so therefore, once you have given rise to, through training, you have given rise to the second aspiration as well, experientially, genuinely, intuitively, the aspiration to help others reach that state, then it is like actually eating the sugar cane from the inside, and it's relatively much sweeter. So therefore, once we begin to do that, eat the sugar cane from the inside, then that is like when we have become bodhisattva. And therefore, according to this definition, then you have actually, this is mind that belongs to the greater way, that you have become a authentic bodhisattva, as opposed to someone who is actually training on it.
다 세니 수니버들아 말 시작하리나 다 주니기 나네 어느 집에 차도 대제라고 주부에서 캠바스 다 주니기 나네 집에 차도 세대 관리지 수가 다외 차도다 집에 차도 생기고 근데 다외 차도도 집에 차도 세대 스탄 대시자도 먹고 좀 스타일 나십니다 아무래도 근데 슈기 공부 시작 또 어디 가서는 다외 차도스나 다 소름다 이식이 총이는 또 이식이 총거든요 아니 가이 받으라 따위 차도지 소름다 이식이 총이는 또 어디는 소름도 총이 차도 가이 받으라 아니 차도 가서 공수도 막 가이 받으라 아니 집에 차도 쓰는 거야 이상 뒤지 생계비 아 소름도 총당 이식이 총이 나는 또 어디는 가서 소름도 총이 공부해서 아니 내 생계들아 집에 차도 쓰는 자고 그렇게 됐어.
So therefore, the third aspect of bodhicitta definition, where it says that it belongs, that it is included in the activity side of the standard division into the two of view and activity, or method and wisdom. The reason why we say that bodhicitta actually belongs to the aspect of activity or aspect of method is because the two types of accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom, bodhicitta actually belongs to accumulation of merit. So whatever practice belongs to the aspect of accumulation of merit is actually referred to as aspect of method, or aspect of conduct, or aspect of activity, and whatever practice actually gives rise to accumulation of wisdom is actually defined as aspect of view or aspect of wisdom.
제가 대전하고 주변에 주내가 쳐봤으면 제가 대전하고 주변에 주내가 쳐봤어요. 그래서 대전 승대는 대전 전주 쓰면 대전하고 주변에 쳐보면서는 주변에 쳐 맞았어. 가서 대전하고 주고 주스 내봐서 자고 대전하고 주변에 맞아서는 대전하고 주고서는 가르치라 대전바이나 교육주라기 다 지금 잡아야 되지. 대전바이나 다 대전 승대에 이나 대전하고 주변에 잡아와이나 아니 되나 가스나다 메모도 소리 가사 쳐다봐지 와 되게 되게 소란바 조란바 되게 지기 그러더니 여기 되게 생게 기절을 주고 있는 거다 생기는 저거 제와이나 이거 가스는 거 가스나 개미나무도 마송가 메밀나무도 송행이 되는 참선 맞다 메밀나무도 마송 지금 생각이 티지 승진이 소소했으니까 매매라 모두 손에 그는 인도다 하려면 쉬우냐 티지는 쉬우냐 정부 승진이 티지 승진이 팀에는 쉬우만요 통보라는 티지 야 잡아서 쉬운 정부 승진이 게임이에요. 다시 맨 모두 마소 팀에는 쉬우만요 정부 승진이 티지 승진이 양 팀에는 쉬우면 그 실수는 게임이에요. 그래서 군민이가 티지는 주고 샹가지고 스타트가 갈라고 티지는 주고 있으면 봐서 이제 아니 그런 지상받니 오늘 티지가 이난 미난들 무슨 샤서비 상승을 고로 주변에 강발라야 쉬고 어디 아니 뭐 강발이면 내발라 강발을 쉬고 하듯이 티지발라 주발라 오늘 그런 지상받니 아니 그런 계획이 근데 잡아 유행이 어디 되지잖아. 티지는 주고 있으면 봐서 당원수 지날 수 있는 거 아니지 나 다디 식들이 주고 있으면 봐서 주고니까 잡아셔야 돼. 그래서 티지 승진은 티지는 주고는 책을 내서는 제일 많았어. 맞아, 그래서는 맨날 모두 소리 내려도 또 모두 소리 저 소리 티지 승진이죠. 티지는 주고를 해서 말했어. 그래서는 티지는 주고이나 티지가 건강을 깨와는 게 오가지고 말했어. 이 많이 배워서는 맨날 모두 마소리 맨날 모두 좀 많이 재밌으니까 티지 말했어. 그래서 맨날 모두 소리 재밌어 가지고 맨날 모두 막 재밌어 가지고 배워봐. 얘도 좀 못한 얘기를 마셔. 아니 야 티지는 쉬고 있어봐. 또 그걸 티지 승진이죠. 어디 아니 티지는 쉬고 많이 통보를 하는 티지는 쉬고 재밌으니까 이런 게임이 있어. 군대 먹었어. 나 지상 같은 티지 승진 지상 같은 거가 주고를 하고 티지 승진 티지는 주고 있는 게 정말 많았어. 그래서 너무 다시 그때마다 다시 먹는 수단 거에서 주고 있는 게 티지 승진은 티지는 주고 있는 체계를 위해서는 제가 말에 강사 제가 받는 말하는 거라고 말하는 게 강가 정비서가 좀 특히 지금 뒤에 티지 승진 티지가 강가 줄게 이렇게 조사를 말했어. 거의 이내다 그 주순내 말이었으면 주순내 말이었어. 근데 이마에 가서는 그 지상 받으면 아니 티지가 이미 샤서를 상상을 모두 샤워해서 주고 있으면 무슨 나오는 거지. 주고 있는 책을 말했어.
Okay, so then in the definition, one aspect of the definition says that it is a knowledge that it is a knowledge which acts as a door for entering the greater way, or is something of the type. So this is very significant here. You know, like the definition here says, it acts, or the Chitta acts as a type of door. So this is actually what it says, a type of door for entering the greater way. So a type or a class of door for entering the greater way. And the significance here is that, it's because, if we have to ask if it is bodhicitta, is it necessarily the fact that it is the gateway of entering into the Mahayana practice? And the answer is no. It is not necessarily the case, because those who have actually gone into the noble vehicles, those who have actually trained in the vehicle of hearers and solitary realizers, who have actually gone into the Hinayana path, have achieved the state of Arhathood and so forth, and then entered into the Mahayana. For them, this is not the door. So it is not necessarily the case. And so therefore, it is a type. It is generally the case, but not necessarily. So that's why this aspect of definition is important.
티지 승계에서는 티지를 다 티지가 인치가지 티지 승계에서는 티지가 콜플라요나 티지가 최와다 티플라메나 티지가 무술이다 무슨 삼샤사라지 하지만 티지 승계 그런 강사들이 남문제 안에 강사들이 티지가 차와 그랬어 봐. 아니 티지 심진 제지 교회가 꽤 많이 와이나 티지 막 두고 이래 티지 봐 이나 티지 심진 교회가 특별히 했으면 약다스당 티지 봐다 차산이 양티 참 많이 있어요. 그러니까 전에 요아디 가서는 그래서 또 오늘 오순부터 내가 그나 아니 가사를 주라는 티지 심지 한 영상 많이 가서 동반이는 세지 그냥 봐셔야 아니工作领导的多路的些个缺陷，跟哪也有嘛做过。人家听那个可能提起生计来讲，提起生计有个多，人家我提起个一个过去我这个是，人家提醒我，那别家个新郎了，俺们提起个移民的生计有那个技术都到前面去生计的，前面咱们情况都是送的，一年提起生计的一个的往来嘛都是，然后提起个一呢，俺们可以说提起生计有差不多是那个说的，他觉得前面结果一呢，俺们告诉东西我说的。 내가 그는 그 뒤지선 게 열나고 지금 정신과 되게 주고 어디 동료들도 로디 내가 되가서는 막 냠니 내가 잡아서는 말했어 뒤스는 걸로 가고 술 뒤네 뒤지선 게 선데도 아빠지시 동료들도 로디로 처음지 당면서 아니 주장식이 유비 당면서 같이 뒤지선 게 유비 당면 좋지 아니 동료들도 로디 내가 고백이 주는 내가 뭐다 뒤지선 게 내가 좀 우리 그거 말해서 뒤는 내가 제대로 하겠어 근데 뒤집어 이발라 뒤집어 게 뭐가지고 그래 지금 뒤집어 있나 그주라 뒤집어 잡아지 채는 거 말했어 이제 뭐다
So also generally this is important to actually distinguish that if one has bodhicitta then whether one becomes Mahayana practitioner or not is basically defined by whether one has given rise to bodhicitta or not. So according to that, if someone has bodhicitta, then that person is a Mahayana practitioner. And if someone has no bodhicitta, that practitioner is not a Mahayana practitioner. But then, again we have to make this kind of distinction here, is that if we were asked this logical question, that if someone is a Mahayana practitioner, if someone is a Mahayanist, then is it necessarily the case that that person has to have bodhicitta all the time? And so then the answer to that is no. So that might seem like a little bit awkward, but that is the case, because when the bodhicitta, when the Mahayana practitioner or when the bodhisattva actually dwells on the meaning of emptiness directly, or meditates on emptiness directly, and is in a meditative equipoise pertaining to emptiness. At that state, when the Mahayana practitioner has entered into a meditative equipoise in emptiness, that Mahayana practitioner has, during that period, during that session, there is no bodhicitta. So therefore, that's very important, because once one is actually in the state of emptiness, then the overall mind has actually absorbed into the state of emptiness, and so therefore bodhicitta and all other factors have actually become dormant or become very subtle, so they are not manifested at the time. So therefore, in Lamrim Chemo, in the various stages of the path to enlightenment, but Tsongkhapa says that whether one is a bodhisattva or not is dependent on whether there is this mind or not. But what Tsongkhapa meant by this mind or not, with reference to bodhicitta, is that Tsongkhapa actually here is also thinking that when the bodhicitta is still in the dormant form as a potential, we still have to say that that practitioner is still bodhisattva, even though in the state of emptiness there is no manifest bodhicitta in that practitioner, but bodhicitta has become dormant, has become very subtle, and therefore it is in the form of a kind of potentiality or energy, because it becomes very subtle. But the manifest bodhicitta is not there when the practitioner is actually meditating on emptiness.
다 지금 오버도 상제와 됐습니다. 와 상제와 가서 상제 법이구나. 아니 돈이 무슨 또 비트나 아니 심지어 더 치와 되어 있어. 가서는 상제 법도 뒤다고 안 돈이 나냐 봐 샤샤네. 배나 상제 돈이가 돈이 나냐 봐 샤샤네. 나네 아니 돈이 그냥 샤더니 마샹와지. 아니 심지어 심지어 탐지 되니까 미와 당 아니 지금 신경을 미와 니가 어떻게 요구해서 아니 돈이 무슨 것도 왜 딘데 왜 어디당 전부 쓰는 거 좀 용어에 가와인 것은 상제 법이 있어. 배나든지 아니 랑제 랑고지를 빼자. 랑제 년년 마셔 랑제 년년 마셔. 랑고지도 조교는 배니도 잡아도지. 대교는 니도 잡아도 딘데 장시시. 상제 중년 대비 연배 지금 매매를 인자 아니 베스인지 더 간제지 제 공부도 제대로 잡아 간제지 나면 돈이 무슨 마도 값이 요 말이야. 돈이 내가 샤샤와 그래서. 그래서 딱 돈이 무슨 또 물어디당 아니 디지 승진이 때문에 용화라 아니 가르스나 다 등이 빠져나와 유주다 시티를 집어 강가 빵 산이 아니 지금 다 그냥 타다세 근데 타다 용수도 난 뒤 중앙에서 우리 돈이 무슨 또 무심이 안에 지금 잘못은 너무 교통을 했어. 그래서 뒤에 와딩 다 체시와 지금 했어. 승진 내가 드나 돈이 무슨 또 내가 드나 디지 승진 우주도 내가 지금 유비당이 모두 용두고 그래서 승진 되기 가서는 아니 유주당 시티 얘는 시집이 집어 이 말이고 방 통해서 딘데기 돈이 무슨 또 무심이 안에 되는 참을 생기 내가 지도기 잡아 지도고 말했어. 나 상제와 디스나 가서는 유주 타다 빵 시부 타다 빵을 집어 니가 빵 사원에서 아니 시도 매매를 해서 돈이 무슨 또 무심이 안에 아니 시도 지금 잡아 지야다 참을 생기 온다 니가 좀 그러는데 상제 안에 그랬어. 이 시켜도
And also we have to understand this point that when we say that it's not possible for Bodhisattva to dwell on emptiness directly and still have bodhicitta at the same time, manifest bodhicitta that is. We are saying this only for sentient beings. Even bodhisattvas are sentient beings according to the category of categorization of what is a sentient being and what is an enlightened person. So only for sentient beings this is not a possibility to not to waver from the state of emptiness or state of dhammakaya and still have other things like compassion and so forth. But there comes a time when it is possible that the union of method and wisdom becomes indivisible. That without actually wavering even for instant from the state of dhammakaya, from the state of meditative equipoise and emptiness, that enlightened beings are able to engage in all compassionate activities. So therefore, when one achieves the state of enlightenment, then at that level, then it is possible to to be in meditative equipoise and emptiness and still have bodhicitta and compassion. Because by definition, when one becomes enlightened, then the enlightened person never actually wavers, even for an instant, from the state of emptiness or from the state of dhammakaya, and without actually wavering even for an instant, engages in all activities to benefit sentient beings, including giving teachings and so on. Right? So this is possible only at the enlightened state. And so at the enlightened state, there is no such thing as meditation stage and post-meditation stage. There is no such thing as meditative equipoise and then post-meditative equipoise. The enlightened person never actually wavers even for an instant from the state of dhammakaya, from the state of absorption into emptiness, and still from that state engages in all the activities effortlessly. So usually the analogy given is basically elephant. When the elephant walks, it seems like the elephant is dozing off. When the elephant sits, it still seems like the elephant is dozing off. But you don't actually see any kind of difference in terms of the expression, whether the elephant is walking or whether the elephant is actually lying down. So that's very much like the analogy is to the enlightened state. There is no such difference in terms of meditative equipoise and post-meditative equipoise. And the reason why the enlightened state, the enlightened person is able to do so and not bodhisattvas, even high-level bodhisattvas, is because high-level bodhisattvas have not purified all of afflictive emotions as well as obscurations to knowledge, the two types of obscurations of afflictive emotions and then obscurations to omniscience. So once all of these two obscurations are purified, then it is possible to finally get to that state, where one never actually wavers with the state of Dhammakaya.
다 이해가 됩니다.
So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and then we'll just finish off the course material, and after that Geshe is going to talk to us about refuge in general. I know there's some people in the room that haven't done the course, so it might be a bit heady that we're going through the definitions and sub-definitions. It's really exciting if you've been in all the other courses, but it might not be if you don't know what the hell we're talking about. So overall, we're going to cover that after we finish the course material. We'll cover the overall idea of taking refuge and where all this fits into making sense of a life that appears human, that is filled with suffering, and we can actually shift into something meaningful for the sake of ourselves and others. So we'll then cover really practical application of refuge. So please mingle with each other, have some food, drink. If you want to come and talk to Geshe, please do so. It's a rare opportunity, as you can tell. And also you get to realize how amazing it is that we have these teachings in English and we have the capacity of having them translated. This is a beautiful time. So take a break. We'll be back at about 5:02. Yeah? Thank you.
Oh, lost.